Welcome to a present from the past.
The show for all your paranormal needs.
Hello and welcome to another episode of A Presence from the Past. Sorry about last week's episode, folks, if I could even talk straight. I pretty much got a promotion at work, or at least a new title that I'm taking on, and had a bunch of stuff fall into my lap and a lot of stuff to sort out. So I was unable to get around to making another episode. I deeply apologize. However, we're going to be trying something new. Once again, if you'd like, see, I'm so out of it right now trying to figure out what I'm going to say next. If you're new to the channel, just know that I do a lot of talking about paranormal stuff, anything from different haunted locations around Texas to different techniques as far as anything related to paranormal investigation-wise. I'll even talk about haunted artifacts or different anything related to paranormal. I'll discuss it. I've been a paranormal investigator for 11 years, so I have a little bit of experience with it. Not saying I'm an expert, not by a long shot. I know people that have been in the field for many, many, many more years than I have, and even though I consider them to have great knowledge on it, I don't really consider any of them an expert, if you will. I'll go more into that here in a little bit. First off, I received an email that invited me to this new app. I'd never heard of it, but they were inviting me to join this app to where I could come on and discuss different things and anything related to my paranormal, to a presence from the past, and it would allow me to actually interact with people that are on the app who, were listening to the show at the time. And we all know I record these and then I post them a couple of days later, but this would allow me to do a live show. And if you have any questions, paranormal related or anything like that, you can actually tune into the show via the app and listen. You can even, it allows me to have guests on, or, if you feel like you want to chime in or something, you can do that. Now, this is the first time I'm using this. I had to go buy a little adapter for my phone so I can get it hooked up to the sound and everything. So I'm going to try and bring it up here. And we're going to see how this works. Okay.
The meeting or not, what now?
Alright. What are you going to talk about? I'm going to talk about paranormal. Let's see. What should we talk about today? We can talk about paranormal teams and pretty much, paranormal teams, and if you feel like you're haunted. Sorry for the dead air, folks. I'm typing. I'm old. It's hard for us to type and think and talk at the same time. All right. This. Choose up to 2 tags. Oh, you got to go through and choose tags now. Okay, I'm going to do podcasting. And should be under education, technology, science, natural science, social sciences. Physics, chemistry, nope. Arts and hobby, food, entertainment, love and family. I really don't know where we're going to put this at. I know right now I got it under podcasting, and I don't think they really thought this through when they invited me on it. I'm going to go under hobbies. Okay, so podcasting and hobbies. And we'll go from there. Allow wisdom to, yes, while using the app. Okay. Allow. All right. It looks like we're live on there. We'll see how this goes, folks. This, like I said, this is my first time on it, so we'll pretty much be discussing why do people reach out and talk to paranormal investigators to come out to your homes and stuff. A lot of times it's for your own sanity. You have a lot of crazy stuff going on in the house that you can't personally explain. You hear sound, you hear noises, you want to rationalize them, but you're at a point where you feel like you can't rationalize it. So you seek outside help and possible, experts in quotation marks, but you invite them to come out to your home, to your business, to see what they find, and they come in, do an investigation, and through the investigation they may collect some evidence, and at some point they'll come back to you and present it to you to explain what they found. I am a true believer in that most things can be explained logically or rationally, and if you have certain noises going on in the attic, there's a chance you might have rodents or something, and it's not always paranormal related. If you get this creepy feeling while you're, in the laundry room or the garage, which here in Texas, those are the two most common places that feeling comes over you. And I've explained it in some of my podcasts before, but those two areas, the reason you get those feelings is because of EMFs, high levels of EMFs. And EMFs are electromagnetic fields. They're caused by either poor wiring or just a lot of electrical wiring in that area. And when you get into the laundry rooms or the garage, or probably more up north or in other states, because I don't see too many basements here in Texas, but in other locations you have basements where you have a lot of exposed wiring, and those things can cause those EMFs, and that gives you all the feelings of being watched, can make you sick. If you are sensitive to EMF and it's high enough level, it can actually cause you to hallucinate and see or hear things. So those are a couple other reasons why people may reach out and try and find a paranormal investigator to come out to their place. I will say this much, though: be careful. I know there's only so much vetting you can do when it comes to looking into paranormal people, and some of them have all this stuff on their website saying, hey, we've done this, blah, blah, blah. If they come at you and they start, talking numbers about charging you to do this and do that, know that there are a lot of paranormal groups out there that do not charge to come out and investigate a house. The group I'm a part of, ASAP, we're located here in North Texas. We do not charge to do an investigation. We accept tips because it's a nonprofit organization, and we could use all the help we can get in order to support what we do, because we buy our own equipment, we pay for our own gas and everything when we're going to do these investigations. And a lot of times it's out of the goodness of our hearts that we do this. And we generally care about the people that we're going to their place to investigate. We want to make sure that they're safe. We have certain protocols in place to where if there's a child involved, or you know, we think it's something serious, like people are claiming to get hurt or anything like that, you get bumped up on our list, and we come out a little bit quicker to investigate just to see what we can do to help you. Um, so yeah, be aware of the other paranormal groups out there that they want to charge you money to come out and do an investigation. There's always someone else out there that's willing to do it without the charges. And ASAP, hate to toot our own horn a little bit, but I'm going to brag here for just a second. ASAP has been around since 1973. We're one of the oldest paranormal groups in the U.S. We started up in New York. Our founder was a gentleman by the name of Stumble. Our founder was a gentleman by the name of Rick Moran. He hooked up with a couple other guys up in New York City, set up the ASAP first in New York, started doing some investigations out there, and then him and his wife decided to move down here to Texas and bring ASAP with them. Now, Rick comes from a lot of different interesting backgrounds. He was a New York police officer. He was a journalist. So he was also a teacher on the police force in New York. So he was able to use all of these to kind of create if you will, a study guide or a playbook for investigations and how we go in and do investigations. Unfortunately, Rick passed before I was able to join the group. He passed, I believe, in 2010. I joined in 2011. But he pretty much laid the groundwork for how a proper investigation is to be done. Now, that being said, there are all sorts of other groups out there, and they all have their own different ways of doing things. ASAP is actually, we're associated with TAPS. I say that TAPS is a big organization. If you ever seen Ghost Hunters on TV, that's TAPS, Transatlantic Paranormal Society. And ASAP, even though we've been around longer and we've been in the game a little bit longer, I say we, ASAP, the group as a whole, has been around a little bit longer. TAPS went out and got famous. They kind of made the right moves, got smart, and now we have to say that we're associated with them and that there are, we're a sister group of them, or we fall under the TAPS banner. But when you actually start looking at their investigative techniques and how they do things, it's based off of a lot of things that Rick set up, Rick from ASAP set up from the get-go on how to do a proper investigation. So, yeah, I feel like, and I kind of feel like I fall into the same category with Rick. Is there are proper steps to take to do investigations, and if you ever have a group that comes out to investigate either your house, your business, and they're not being respectful, or they seem like they're clowning around and not really doing what they're supposed to be doing, I wouldn't let them stay. ASAP, we go through rigorous. See, this is what happens when I try to talk too much. It just doesn't come out of me easily. We go through strict background checks. Got around it. We go through strict background checks, and every one of our members has to go through these background checks before we allow them to come out and do an investigation with us. So we're definitely a group that you can be trusted, or that can be trusted to come out and do investigation. And there's a website out there. Y'all are going to hate me because I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it has a list of all the TAPS related organization groups that answer to TAPS as far as coming out and doing investigation. And they all should follow certain guidelines, and they all have to be, all their investigators have to be backed and background checked and have to go through all this verification before they can even come out to do an investigation. Now, that being said, I do believe most of them on that list do not charge. Not 100% sure because I personally haven't called up and checked every one of them, but I know TAPS doesn't charge when they do their investigations, and I think they kind of frown upon it. So, Now, once you get a group out there, they come out, they'll do the investigation, they'll check everything out. And I'm one of those that I believe, like I said at the very beginning, I don't think everything is paranormal related. I think a lot of things can be explained away if you just sit down and look at it or think about it and watch how things happen. If you got a bunch of noises in the attics, it could be rats, it could be raccoons, it could be squirrels or something getting into the attic, running across the ceiling, causing those noises. Um, I've already explained the EMFs in the bath or in the laundry room and the garage. Um, at this point, actually, the shape of your house comes into effect. If your floor is not level, it can cause something that we call the funhouse effect, to where it just throws off your senses, and that can make it feel like something eerie or something's wrong, when all it is a simple, the floor is not level, or, this wall may be crooked or something. And generally, it takes a couple of those things coming into place, like an unlevel floor, a crooked wall, all at the same time, in order for it to really have that effect. But it is a possibility. You also have to start thinking about, you have a cold spot. Well, is there draft coming through the room? Is there, a window that cracked or left open that shouldn't be open? Or, there's so many different things that can cause all sorts of things. And that's one thing I love about ASAP is that we go in and it's called debunking, but we go in and debunk all of these possible paranormal situations and make sure that we have an explanation for them all. Only if we cannot explain it with a rational, there we go, stumbling over my tongue again. If we cannot explain it with a rational, is that even a word? If we cannot explain it rationally with something of hard evidence, then we can kind of start eliminating all other possibilities. It has to be something paranormal. Um, and yes, quite a few investigations I go on. We'll go through the entire investigation. We don't catch anything. Um, I will never use clients' names or addresses or anything like that on the show. I do not do that. That's part of ASAP's role, but that's just me in general. I don't feel comfortable with sharing people's information. I can talk about the case and what happened there, but I won't share their information. We had a case where a couple called us up, and the whole reason they wanted us to come out was because they kept hearing a cuckoo clock go off, and it just go off at random times, and they didn't have a cuckoo clock in the entire house. So we went out. And it was a drive for us. It was a ways. We're located in DFW, and this is out towards the Panhandle. So it was a little bit of a drive for us. We get out there. We start doing the investigation. And as soon as we pull up, the people are like, hey, did you bring your tools to, knock out the walls and take that cuckoo clock out of here if you find it? I didn't know you were hiring a construction crew. No, we're just coming here to see if you have ghosts or what you think is going on. We went through that entire house. We did not get a single hit on any piece of equipment. And they lived in a beautiful, beautiful Victorian style house. I'm not about to touch anything like that with a hammer. It's like I do not do construction. I can in my own home, but I'm not going to do it on somebody else's house. But we get cases like that all the time. It's it's fun because we get to group together and we kind of get a laugh about it afterwards or whatnot. But there's sometimes when there's absolutely nothing that's there that can be explained as paranormal. It can all be explained away. So hey, it's deep down inside, it's a little bit of a waste of our time and money. But if it makes you feel more safe about where you live and more comfortable about where you're staying or what you're doing, in your home or in your business, I'm all for that. if it gives you a peace of mind knowing that there's not a ghost that's chasing you down the hallway or, staring at you in the middle of the night, I'm glad I put you at ease. But if we do find out that it's something that could be um, an evil entity or something even non-evil, if it's just a spirit that has been trapped there for whatever reason, we can look into different ways of getting rid of it or removing it from your property. Now, some of those may include sage burns, prayers, or stuff like that. If uh, ASAP gets any sort of hint that it might be demonic or going down that road of evil, we won't do it. And that's for everybody's safety because we're not trained on how to handle stuff like that. There are certain people with certain, I like to call them demonologists or exorcists that are part of church groups and stuff. They know how to handle things like that, and they are more prepared for things like that. We more handle your everyday run-of-the-mill spirits, uh, residual haunts, or probably the craziest stuff would be poltergeist. And I'll go over all these different types of spirits and everything that we do investigate and what we look into and get a little bit more detail about all this different stuff that we actually investigate. Um, but I've gone to people's homes, I've gone to cemeteries, um, all sorts of different places. Some of the most interesting places have been people's businesses. Um, the craziest place I've ever gone to investigate was actually a sanatorium that was in another state. We were told that we couldn't even mention their name, so I won't mention their name, but there's a sanatorium in another state, and it was set up for tuberculosis, to treat tuberculosis patients. So they were essentially sent there to live out the last bit of their life because back in those days, they didn't have a treatment for tuberculosis. You were sent there to die. And so if you can just imagine the amount of sadness that was wrapped into that building and going in and doing an investigation there, it was emotionally draining because you feel all that negative sadness, just emptiness. And that was a completely different experience for me. But yeah, like I was saying, if you do have to have a crew come out and investigate, make sure you kind of look into them, see if you can talk to some of their old clients, see what they say about them, um, and kind of dig into their history a little bit, see what you can find out about them. Anybody that's going to come out and do a proper investigation, once you make contact with them, they will contact you back. They will start getting a little bit of a history from your family and what your association is with the property. A lot of times we're looking into seeing if there's any sort of mental issues. Like I said, we have to rule out all possibilities. So if we have someone that's on medication for mental issues or they're on drugs or alcohol, we need to know about that because if it's stuff that's only happening to one of those three people, maybe it's something that's with the drugs or alcohol. Well, sorry, you shouldn't be drinking or taking that many drugs. If it's somebody with a mental issue, maybe their medication needs to be adjusted before things get worse. And we can't make that call, but we can at least rule out all the other possibilities, and that leaves you with one thing to investigate yourself. Um, wow, I was on a thought and it just derailed. um, but yeah, we'll come out. We'll start looking into a little bit of the family history, and then we'll also start doing a research on the property history and find out as much as we can about that property. Um, who knows? There might have been a Civil War battle nearby, or a land dispute between two warring neighbors or something, and something happened and there was deaths or accidents or something that happened within that property line that may be explaining what's going on there. It could also be, we'll get more into the scientific stuff as far as the water lines and stuff like that can actually cause issues with paranormal. Also, that stuff gets interesting. But you got water lines, you got mineral lines and everything, or different minerals that can cause different activities, or at least a amplification of different activities that can happen because of those things. But we'll look into the history of the property. We'll dive in, figure out as much as we can, in trying to either figure out if it's one of the spirits that's trapped there from one of those situations, or if it's something else. And we'll do more explanations in some of the more shows that I do and everything. And if you ever want to see some of these shows, I do have a YouTube channel, A Presence from the Past. I also have a podcast, A Presence from the Past, which I'm actually recording this one for now to put on both YouTube and my podcast. But I've gone into some of this stuff before, and I'm going to go over it again because I love talking about paranormal stuff. But there are certain different, when it comes to hauntings and stuff, it could be a spirit attached to the land. It could be a spirit is attached to an item, or one of the people in the family or in the household. And that one's a lot more trickier to deal with. It's normally a past family member that has passed away, or that something not nice has been attached to that certain person. That can happen with different types of spells or witchcraft and stuff. I don't dive into that stuff. I don't put it past it actually happening, but it's one of those things. I don't like it too much. I'll go into my personal history with paranormal stuff, and it goes back to when I was 7 years old, and that's kind of why explanation of why I stay away from anything that may be related to witchcraft or Ouija boards or that stuff. I stay away from them. But the thing can be attached to an item. So if spirits can be attached to an item. So if you had a grandmother that had a favorite dish or porcelain doll or something, when she passes away, she can actually attach herself because that was her happy moment with that item, or that's one of the other reasons they get attached to the property. Their happy moments or their sad moments or whatever, the most profounding emotions they had were attached to either that item or that property, and they can get stuck there, and they stay in that. So yeah, you can have any type of those with attached to the property, to an item in the house, and to a person. And when we come out and do an investigation, we're trying to determine which one of those is right. So that's why we have the historian look into the background stuff. We'll have people talk to you and find out, hey, was there something you recently bought and brought into the house, or was there something that recently changed up? There could be any number of things. And then after we go through all that, we'll actually have our investigators come out. And I'm actually lead tech, so I'm in charge of bringing all the equipment out there, setting all the equipment up, and making sure it's working all right. Excuse me. So we'll come out, we'll set up the equipment, we'll go through and do an investigation. And then just because we don't receive any hits or any paranormal activity that night, we don't completely rule it out, because we know that ghosts can't act on command. You can't just sit there and snap your finger and expect, someone to dance for you. It's not going to happen. So if we need to set up other time to come back and do an investigation, but we have to comb through all of our evidence, all of our equipment after we do an investigation, just to see if we did catch anything. And I mean, that's a lot of stuff to go through. So it takes us, we're supposed to have it, I say we're supposed to have it back. The idea is to have it back within 2 weeks. In actuality, most of us have jobs, most of us have families, so we're normally pretty busy. Even though we want to try and get that done as fast as we can, we can't ignore the fact that we have to take care of our families and our bills and stuff. But we'll try and get through that any of that stuff as quickly as we can so we can get it back to you and get it back to our group leader, who will come out and present whatever evidence we've captured. And if we haven't captured any evidence and, maybe something just stands out to where there might have been something that was paranormal, but we're not 100% sure, we may come out and do another investigation. And, sometimes they'll bring back a couple of key members from the last crew. Sometimes it's a whole new, fresh crew that goes out there that does it. Right now we're kind of limited on numbers thanks to COVID, but because of that, we will send out probably the same crew here, in order to go back and do an investigation. And then once we get that stuff back to you, we can either explain away some of the stuff that you've seen or tell you straight up, yeah, you have something going on here, and you have these options on how to deal with it. I've not personally sat through one of those reveals. I'm looking forward to the day that I do get to sit through one of those. But we have certain people that we can reach out to as far as doing house cleanses. And I mean cleansing of the spirit, not cleaning the house, okay? But we have certain people that we can reach out to do spiritual cleansing of the house. I guess that would be appropriate. And then I know we're trying to reconnect with some of the people that do demonology and that stuff, and therefore if we think it's something a little more dark or more seated than what we can handle, we try and get those people involved and usher everybody that way. So in the end, we want everybody to be satisfied with whatever service they receive from us. That being said, we don't like, I say we, I'm going to take the, step back from ASAP for a second. I don't like it when other paranormal groups do some of the crazy stuff that they do, going out, breaking into people's homes, breaking into abandoned properties, and all for the, sake of the thrill of something happening. They end up damaging property. And, in the case of, we had some investigators back in Louisiana. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It was a few years back, but they broke into a 100-plus-year-old plantation, and because they were fooling around, burnt it to the ground. That's a piece of history that we'll never get back. And it also makes us, as paranormal investigators, look bad, because there was a couple of thrill seekers that decided to follow their own rules and ended up, just destroying a piece of history. That's not what ASAP's about. ASAP is definitely on the front of, we want to do the research and find out what we can, especially when it comes to the scientific research of paranormal. It's kind of hard right now because if you really, 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 really boil it down, everything that is paranormal related is all based off of theories. There's no hard laws or evidence to really support any of it. So trying to get that baseline laws of what we can use to investigate is really, really hard. But I truly believe that ASAP and with Rick's teaching, that's probably the best way to go about it and the best way to actually get as much information for it as we can. Well, I think that was a somewhat successful first run of Wisdom. This was my first time being on Wisdom. Once again, I have a podcast, A Presence from the Past. I talk about all things paranormal. I went on kind of a kick there for a little while, talking about different haunted places around Texas, mainly historical places, and stuff like that. I've also gone over how to do proper investigations, and there's so many different things that I want to touch on and push more with my podcast and YouTube channel. But if you're listening on Wisdom, please check them out. A Presence from the Past, both on YouTube, on what's that other one? I'm on Spotify, YouTube. I think I'm trying to get on Apple Music, and then now I'm on Wisdom. I'm also going to be, like I said, this is my first time using Wisdom, so I'm still trying to figure out how all this stuff works. I understand that they're telling me you can reach out and talk to me, and I can talk to you through it. Maybe we can do that some too. If my next show, I might do something where we'll have people call in and ask about certain things that they're going through and get an opinion or whatever. I'm open for all that. I'm going to try and do another show next Thursday. It's probably going to be around 10 o'clock. Well, probably going to be a little earlier than that, truthfully. This is kind of late for me. I normally try to get it done by about 8:30, 9 o'clock, so somewhere in there. Once I get a little bit more accustomed to Wisdom, I'll get a little more set pattern of how I want to do the shows and everything. And, if I don't know if y'all can leave comments or anything like that on this, but I know you can on the other two that I mentioned doing the podcast and YouTube. So if you hear me on here and you want to go check out my YouTube channel, once again, it's A Presence from the Past. Feel free to watch any of those videos and leave a comment or something down below. And I'll try and do this about once a week. I might be able to do it more. I do work 50 hours a week and just picked up a new position up at my job, so super, super busy. All right, guys. It was nice tuning in with y'all. Hopefully, I'll see y'all next time, okay? Have a good one. Wow, that was super, super long. That was my first time on Wisdom, guys. It's something that I'm going to try and start doing more on a regular basis. But yeah, 32 minutes. Wow, my podcast normally only go about 20 minutes. So we'll check and see how it does. I'm definitely looking for this. It's be something new, something a little more exciting. I've always wanted to be able to reach out to you guys and have you guys reach back to me and ask questions or whatnot. All right, guys. That's going to be it for today's show. Until next time, have a good one.